Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Barbara Tien, and absolutely delighted to welcome you to this very special program today, featuring none other than our celebrity, Lori Olson White, to tell us about this incredible time capsule project. As you will know, it started with this tantalizing idea about the century safe. And one thing led to another, and she's
It
taken it
sure
to
did.
another level. So let me get out of the way and let you go ahead and tell us the story. Lori, go on.
I'll just start a little bit about Annie Deihm. We'll start with that. So, 1876, it's America's centennial celebration, and uh, she has this crazy idea that she's going to make a century safe, and it's going to last for 100 years and be opened in 1976 by the president, whoever's the president at the American bicentennial. And she goes about it, and she's got all these great plans and all that stuff, and in 1879, a couple years late, she does seal it and puts it in the national capital. Um, the, there's some controversy around why it didn't get placed the way it was supposed to, but it ends up being put out in the east portico at the national capital, and kind of forgotten for about 97 years. 1971, a congressman from Texas hears through the grapevine, I think probably from the janitors, because I've heard that the janitors knew about it. And he says there's this safe somewhere that is supposed to be opened at the bicentennial. Somebody should find it. So they find it. It's still there. It's dusty. It's in a big white box. They take it out. They don't know where the key is. They don't know what the combination is. So they hire a an anonymous safecracker, which I think is funny. They said they did not know they didn't release the person's name, and he opens the outside doors, and so there's steel doors. This safe is 7 feet tall, 3,500 pounds, and it's got these doors. So they open up the doors, and on the inside of the doors, and I'll put pictures in. I'll give them to Barbara. On the inside of the doors, on one side in gold leafing, they called it like almost circus script, and um, it says Mrs. It's the wish of Mrs. Diem that the safe remain closed until 1976, and then it should be opened by the chief magistrate of the United States, which of course would be the president. And but they still can't open it because they need a key to get into the glass. The second set of doors are glass, and so you can see inside the safe. Um, and a guy in Florida sees this on the news and says, I'm pretty sure I have the key to that. And it turns out that his great aunt, I know, right? His great aunt had worked for Annie Diem. She was a newspaper woman, and she had been an editor, and she had worked for Annie. And when Annie died, she gave Emma the key. And Emma didn't have any children. She passed it down to her niece. Her niece didn't have any children, passed it down to her nephew, and he's the one that had the key. So I don't know, he contacts the Capitol and says, I'm pretty sure I have the key. And because of that, on July 1st, 1976, President Ford opened up the Century Safe just the way Annie had expected it to do, even though almost everything went wrong. I mean, it had been forgotten. It had been, all the chances it had. It was really because this one woman had kept the key and told the story to her family. So um, so that's the story that got me going. And about, I guess it was in February, I had sent early on, I'd sent a note, an email to the architect of the Capitol in Washington saying that I'd seen that there were some things in their archives. And they got back to me, invited me to come and see the safe and this, some of the things that were in it. And it, incredible. And that was when I decided that this was something I was going to do, because it was just, it was so amazing to think that this had lasted this 100 years. And so about, I guess, a month ago, I started um, putting together the groundwork for a century safe, and that's what I'm doing. Um, uh, so yeah, I think I'm two. Yeah, I'm about a month in, I guess. So what I've done is so far, I'll just tell you what I've done so far is I've uh, I've made a vision statement, and I talked to my family about it, and now we're just moving forward. So sometime at the end of the year, sometime, we don't have a date yet, we're gonna close up a century safe and open it on the at in 2076. So well, I probably won't, but they will anyway. So so that's the story of how I got here. And then we can talk about just how you do this kind of thing. Because I've spoken to almost a dozen people already that are doing something similar or going to do something that are putting together smaller safes or time capsules or some kind of documentation um, for the future for 2076. Some of them are doing it for different dates, but it seems like a great idea to do it for the tricentennial. So that's that, that's what I'm doing. Um, as far as how to do it, do you want me to just keep going? Okay. Um, so what I did was I went through all of how Annie did it. Because hers was really, no one had ever done a time capsule like that before. There'd been, things that had been buried under a cornerstone or something like that, but hers was very intentional and well documented. So I started going through how she did it and and um and how it lasted, how it made it to 100 years, even despite everything kind of going to pieces. How she did that. And I came up with like a system, a method to how she did it. So that's that, and it's simple, right? You don't one of the things she did was she had a plan. She knew, she had a vision statement, and she knew who she was, why she was doing it, what the goal was, how long it was going to last, and then she just set about making those plans. So, and that's kind of what I'm doing on that. My bridge to 2076 is like walking through that process. So the the things that she did differently, she had that vision first of all, and then she gathered everything systematically. So what she did, which was kind of cool, was she because it was during the centennial celebration, they had a big celebration in Philadelphia. So she was there. She had the safe there. She had these books there, and she had people signing the books. And her intent was that people would sign the books, and then underneath it there was a line. And in 1976, people would sign, their descendants would sign in that book. My understanding is that never happened. The books were never opened. That wasn't done, and it might be done for the tricentennial, but that's a fingers crossed thing. But so she did that, and she had these participatory elements, which I think is really important because a lot of times a time capsule just gets opened and then it's like, yeah, nothing, right? It's what do? You open it and you look at it and you go, "Oh, that's cool." And then, if it gets opened at all, they say that, almost two-thirds of them just get lost or forgotten or thrown away. Um, the other thing she did was she had this big safe. I mean, it was 3,500 pounds. You can't really, you can't, you can't miss that. You can't, nobody's going to just throw that away. Although they did, put it out in underneath the patio. But and then the other thing she did was she documented it really, really well. She had her own documentation, but she was a newspaper woman, and so she had this magazine throughout the centennial year of 1876. She had a centennial. It was called the United States Centennial Welcome, And there's still copies of it available at the Library of Congress that you can go in and read. And it was published every month, um, and every issue talked about the Centennial Safe. Every single issue. Um, yeah, she had a newsletter, right? And every single issue, she had multiple articles about that. She would have like why she was doing it. She would have, advertisements saying, um, if you own a newspaper anywhere in the United States, send me two copies, and I'll put it in this book, and then that book is going to be associated with the safe. Um, she had she would take pages out of the book and send it to governors and to mayors and to business people and to Wall Street, and say and have people sign their names, or sometimes give photographs. And then she'd arranged with the carriers. Um, I do have a manifest for everything that's in the safe. Yeah, yeah. And there's some things are that some things that were believed to be in the safe are not in the safe, and some things that were in the safe weren't listed previously. I think I'm off track, but I think what happened was she wrote press releases, and so the stories of before the safe was sealed, the stories were in all the major papers all over the United States, and in there she had listed who's going to do what, who's going to be there, what they're going to put in the safe, and for various reasons. Some of those people didn't show up. President Hayes didn't show up. Um, uh, Peter Cooper, who had donated the safe, didn't show up. There were a bunch of people that didn't show up, and then some of the artifacts. In When I was at the Library of Congress reading through some of her papers, and it said that the morning of the safe, she was in there rearranging things because it was big cell and it has shelves, and she was rearranging things, and several of the photographs fell out, and so they broke, and so they didn't get in the safe. So there was some difference between what the press releases said and then what actually got into the safe. But so it was well publicized. So there's this record, and so even though it was pretty much forgotten, about every 10 or 15 years, somebody would say, I'm going to go back into the newspaper. My newspaper, I remember, printed something about this 10 years ago. I wonder whatever happened to it. And then a reporter from Seattle shows up in DC and says, I think it's 1901 or something, and says, isn't there a safe here somewhere? I mean, we've got this, we had it in our paper a few years ago. And so even though it was actively being forgotten, there was enough documentation. So that's one of the things that I've included in this method about how to do this is document, document, document. So, you know, put it in your Christmas letter. Mention it, right? Mention it every year at Thanksgiving. When you have a family reunion, talk about it. Send pictures of it. Once it's sealed, send pictures of it. Include it in your family album. When you have the closing ceremony, take pictures so that it becomes part of your family's record. Um, One of the things that I kind of did just because of the circumstances, we'd been planning this family vacation for a while, and it predated my decision to make this century safe. And I planned to. I wanted to get the century safe started, so I started it, and then, well, we were on vacation at Disney Paris when it was time to make the announcement about the century safe. So that's where we had our announcement, and it went great. But so my grandkids and my kids, um, when they think about that century safe, they're going to think about that vacation, which may or may not be brilliant. I don't know. We don't know yet. I might never know. But at least there's that memory of there was something going on. Oh, wasn't there? Remember that time we were little and we went to Disney, and didn't Nana say something? didn't she do something crazy that time? So those kinds of memories, she did a really good job of keeping those memories going, even if institutions had failed her. Um, they hadn't the Senate didn't accept it, which is why it never got registered with the so that why the combination never got registered with the Smithsonian because it had no ownership. So so that was one of the things that she did really well was she had these participatory things. Um, she had these participatory things, and then she just connected it as often as she could to everything that she did. When President Garfield died, um, in 81, I guess it was, she published another book, a memorial to him. And in there, she talks about the Centennial Safe. And then she had another one in 89, and she talked about the Centennial Safe in there. And, she was just continually putting it in the public record, kind of in hopes, I think, that somebody was going to remember it. And so I think as people, we can do that too. There's ways to do that. And then the other thing I think is get as much buy-in as you can. Have have people do things, have people contribute things, um, and that's the point in the process that I'm just starting now for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about those things in our family about what everybody's going to be putting into it. So, um, Barbara asked the question, how we talked about it. Well, again, we were all together, and I mentioned it a couple times, and then I think we were sitting in Starbucks, and I was like, by the way, guys, we're going to do this is what we're going to do. This is what it is. They already knew about this, they already knew about Annie's story. They already knew I was going to do this, and it just hadn't really been an official announcement yet. Um, and then everybody just talked about it. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. The grandsons, the granddaughters, everybody was just like, what is this? Yeah, right, Linda. It's like, what is this? What's this crazy idea? And as it started to take root, it was like, I mean, it's kind of a cool idea. I mean, so what? I'm going to be 63 in 50 years. And then that starts kind of going, right? And so yeah, we didn't do it exactly uh the prescribed way, but I think that that's probably how most people are going to do it, right? You have a plan, there's a roadmap, and then you kind of go down it. So that's 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 where we are. Yeah, right. Yeah, just engaging them, just getting everybody engaged and starting to think about it. Um, and I did kind of for our family, one of the things that I did was um uh I I've got six in the in the backup. So one of the things that when in 1976 when Annie's safe was opened up, um, there wasn't a lot of hoopla because most people had forgotten about it. And they didn't have a lot of time to prepare, I don't think. And so the kind of the post-mortem on it was a lot of people were like, this isn't that cool. Yeah, it's 100, the things in here are 100 years old, but it's like pictures, it's photographs of, you know, they're they're these beautiful photographs. Um, and there's like 500 of them. So she had this expansive collection. Um, but it was photographs, it was signatures, and then it was like newspapers and lists of New York Stock Exchange agents and the bankers in America and things like that, government workers. And there weren't a lot of there really were there was very few personal items. There was no stories. There were no. other than the things that were in her newsletter, in her newspaper, there wasn't really a lot of personal things. There wasn't a, I hope this is what 1976 looks like or something like that. And so one of the things I did was I really kind of brainstormed, how do we avoid that? Like if you're going to do this, you want to have things that, as a genealogist, what I did was I thought like, what would I want to open up from my great great grandma? Like, what would I want to know about her? Right? How do I move that forward? So I've kind of started moving like, how do you be a better and how do you be a better ancestor? Right? So so those are the kinds of things that in this, what I took out of it, and this method that I've taken out of what Annie did is like letters to 2076. So letters to, on, and I've got like a whole bunch of different ideas, like a day in your life. That's probably one that we talked about, our family talked about doing. Um, Another one that we're going to do is because in part of Annie's story, I really, when I was going through it, I realized that um, the timing of everything really influenced her. She was a young wife and mother when her husband died in the Civil War, and she was incredibly patriotic. Whether she was before then or because of that, I mean, we can't know, but you could see in all of her writing that the Civil War was very real to her, and she was she was always referring back to the union, we're united. Like it felt very fragile. And I started thinking about all the ways that timing impacts who we are. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be like, one of the letters to 2076 is going to be, these are the events that helped form who I am. Like, because I think all of us can look back and say, like, I was a, my, my daughter and my daughter-in-law were new mothers during the pandemic. And so their experience is completely different than mine, right? And what age you were when these things happened, and good things and bad things. But so we're gonna be sharing some of those things. Other things uh, like where you live. Um, like the technology of our childhood. I love that idea, right? Because what was what was the technology of my childhood compared to my kids and now my grandkids, right? That's something that I would have liked to known about my great great grandparents and my ancestors. Let's see, hopes and beliefs. Um, what memories are worth preserving to you, right? I think that's a good one. Um, and then from City Slickers, best day, worst day, right? I'm a big City Slickers fan. Books you learned from, um, then things about America, and about your community, like your hope for it, your fears, your concerns, the joy of it. There's just a lot of things that I wish I'd known, and I want my descendants to know. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching what's going into the safe. Um, and it's not going to be 7 feet tall. It's going to be about this big. It's going to be about this big. Um,
I don't,
so
this is so fantastic. I don't want to interrupt you as you keep going. So, but keep on going. So I'm just full of questions. I'm tossing them into the chat. You can even ignore them now
no,
and keep
no,
on
no, no,
going. Just know
no.
that we're like bubbling over here.
No. If you have questions or comments, or just I'm just glad I have notes today. Um, uh, so the letters to 2077, 2076. Um, and then this one, I really, really, this one, this was one of those middle of the night ones that you wake up and you turn your phone on and put it in your phone really fast. 5 things the historical records won't tell you about me. right? Right. I mean, that's a good one. That was worth waking up for, I think. I really like that one. And I already have my list. Um, and then a good ancestor statement, I'm calling it. Um, how can I, how, what I hope to transmit to my descendants,
Uh,
right? So not just like who I am, but what do I want them to remember about me, even if they don't know who I am? What do I want about me passed on to them? Um, then photographs, of course. And then we're going to do a participatory, like 3 questions for our descendants, right? Well, and
for
we're
them to put into the future 100 years later for the
yeah. So
quadrennial.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna ask well, we're only doing it 50 years.
Ah,
So yeah, we're gonna open it in 20, they're gonna open it in 2076 for the tricentennial. But um, so questions that we're gonna ask them to answer, right?
mhm,
And then uh like just small artifacts, like a Lego minifigure, right?
mhm,
Um, which right? So, so, so those are the kinds of things that we're going to do, and then for me as the organizer, and and one of the things I'm going to do, and I haven't started working on it because I really am trying to be true to this building my bridge in real time thing that I'm doing. So I'm not pre if you know me, I mean, my Substack is booked out to the end of May right now. I've got everything. I always do everything several months in advance. And this I am doing like the week that it's published, I am doing the work. During that 2 weeks, I'm doing that work. I know, right? It's like super not me. So I've got it on a list, but I'm trying really hard not to do those things yet because I really want this to be me doing it in real time,
mhm.
so that when I come to a hum, I don't have time to self-correct and say it didn't happen. Right? Because I want everybody doing it to understand that this is not easy.
Yeah,
Like when you think about 50 years from now, I'm dead.
yeah,
Um, so in my right, and so you say that, but then you start thinking about like you think about it's not. I was talking to my husband about it, and I said, it's not like doing a will. It's not even doing like an estate kind of thing, because those are things. It's like that's, house and my china collection and, my goblet collection and all of my ancestry things. But this is like, how do I want these people? Some of them I don't even know. What do I want what part of me do I want them to hold? And
mhm,
that's a lot more difficult than just saying who's going to get my china. Um,
mhm,
it's, I
mhm.
mean, it's been a lot more than I thought it was going to be, which may be why Annie didn't go down that way. I mean, by the time she did this, her husband was dead, and at least two of her 4 children were dead by now. She'd gone through loss
Yeah,
already.
yeah,
She maybe couldn't stand to do that.
yeah. I wonder her own children. Have you followed much about them? I
She
mean,
she lived past all of them.
oh,
Yeah, she outlived all of them. Her son, I think, died in infancy. One of her daughters died at 8. I think the other one died. I don't have it real
yeah,
close
but
here.
yeah.
I think it was interesting though you bring that up. An aside, when you talk about doing casting your net wide when you do research, I cast my net very, very wide when I research these stories, and I went through all of the presidential because I knew that she was politically connected. Um, she was she had a lot of connections with the politicals, and so I went through all of the presidential collections from uh, uh, who was Grant. all the way up until she passed away. And in Theodore Roosevelt, when he was governor, I found a letter from her, and I was reading it, and she was talking about something, something, something. And at the very last line, it said something, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it was like, um, if we could get this taken care of in the next couple of weeks, that would be great because I'm going to go visit my grandchildren in New York.
Mm.
And I was like, what? What? Do you have grandchildren? What?
You
And so
didn't
I
tell
did.
me.
And I mean, I, I mean, I didn't even know how it was possible because I knew they were all dead. And yeah, so she did have some grandchildren, and I haven't found them. I haven't found them past, oh, maybe like 1930. I think that's the farthest I've tracked them through. But I'm
Mm.
still on it. I'm still on
Mhm.
it. But
Yeah.
um, and then so we've got these things that I'm putting in, and I actually have like a whole big list of things. I mean, people can put whatever you want in it, whatever you think is gonna, and I think it depends on why you're doing it, right? What you want, what message you want to do, and that's where that vision statement comes in. Because like I think if you're going to commit to this, you want it to have meaning. You don't want it just to be, like grabbing everything you see in it, like like remember when they used to have game shows where they had like 3 minutes to fill up their grocery cart? This is not what you want to do. Yeah, this is not the time to do that, right?
Right.
This is a bigger project, and you want to make sure that there's value in what you're sending
Yeah.
forward.
I can't help myself. You talked about start with a goal, which,
Yeah.
as I said, I
Mhm.
always come back to that. Start with a
Yeah.
goal. Um, but when you're talking about a capsule, the box, the space, the
Yeah. Yeah.
capsule
Yeah.
matters. How much space you have,
Yeah.
and how have you already. That means you're also the person saying no when the little toddler comes with their giant stuffy ready
Yeah.
to give up their stuffy to put in the box, and you have like, it's
Right.
not going to fit in the
Yeah.
box. How do you do
Again,
that?
we haven't gotten to that part, but I have planned for it.
Mm-hmm.
I have planned for it, but
Secret
yeah,
expanding
that's
box.
yeah, yeah,
In a
yeah,
trunk.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. That might be the answer. Um,
Mhm.
but I, the next level of organization that I've come up with is a five circle. So I have five circles. So what I did was I divided all of the curating into five different circles. So the first one is like uh, the historical context, the world we live in. So for us, we're going to I'm going to try to have like 10% of the content, however much it is, 10% of it is going to be on historical context. So it's going to be like newspapers, photos of ordinary life, what people do, or what are people are doing in 2026. And some of that is going to be contained in that a day in our life, right? A day in our life stuff we're going to do. The, the second circle is going to be 20%, and that's going to be our family overview. So that's going to be, and I'm going to take care of most of that. That's going to include our family tree, um, group photos, some traditions, values, things that make us who we are as a family.
Mhm.
And then the third circle is going to be about 40% of it, and that's going to be those five things history forgot about me, the good ancestor statements, and then it's going to be those other um, things that individuals we each decide what what we want to move forward. That's going to be in
Mhm.
that. The fourth is going to be um, I'm calling it the work that mattered, and that's going to be on me. So that's going to be why I did this, why
Mhm.
it mattered to me. I'm going to include Annie's story in that, just since that's how I got here.
She deserves to
That
be.
seems she deserves to be in there, right? And then that's gonna be 15% of it, and then the final part is going to be the bridge forward, and that's going to be the signature, like the participatory elements where we're going to say these are some questions we have for you. We're I've got some ideas that our family's going to be talking about what we're going to put in there, but that's going to be like one of the things was like I thought maybe we could each have like a an envelope and we could put something, like a card or a postcard or something in the envelope and seal it. And even with the letters, I'm not we're not going to go through them. Like
That was my question.
I'm not going
Yeah.
to like they're going to
Privacy.
be
I
private.
mean,
They're going to be
yeah,
private.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
They're going
frankly,
to
those
be
secrets you aren't comfortable talking about publicly
maybe,
now, I
maybe. Yeah.
just was did, but it's okay. A generation from now,
Yeah.
and I'm not gone.
They,
Here it is.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Because maybe that's what I want. That's what
yeah,
I wish that I knew about them, right?
yeah.
I don't know that. But so
That's a good
I'm
question.
going to have some sort of something,
Envelope. Envelope
something
is
in there.
perfect.
Yeah.
The
Envelopes.
concept of
And it's,
envelope versus postcard is
yeah,
fundamental
well,
to privacy.
sure. I'm not thinking that kind of postcard. I'm thinking more of
Mm,
an envelope. And then we'd have like uh, a a card that they could fill something in, and then
yeah,
we'd slip that in, and then yeah,
yeah,
not like a
yeah.
picture postcard or something
No,
like
no,
that,
no.
but yeah,
Actually, that's a
it's still
metaphor. It's
concepting.
just
Yeah,
this is a metaphor. Envelope
yeah,
versus postcard of
yeah,
we all know
yes,
you
for
sent
sure.
it. Either you know what's the inside or you don't.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. So those again, because I'm trying to do it in real time,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to think too much about those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but there's going to be in there, and then the
Mm-hmm.
final 5% is just going to be like the master inventory list.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the the
Manifest.
the yeah the master inventory list, the list of everything that's in there, the opening instructions, the stuff like that, the
Custodian
the stuff like
list.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
who
kind of
had
stuff,
it
right?
now and who
Right,
passes it on? When you think
right.
about the family, we talked about my family.
Hmm.
How do you, I mean, how do you slice that? Is it you, your husband, your children, their children?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And then not the cousin, not the mother-in-law. I
yeah.
mean, how do you slice the,
Actually, in today's post, I had 400 words on that exact
oh,
topic.
sorry, I
I
was
did.
busy.
No, I pulled it out. I pulled it out. I pulled it out. I pulled it out. I had it
And,
written. I pulled it out. Um,
um,
that was a right.
yeah.
Again, it's part of that. It was part of the vision. The vision. It's like, what do you want? Who is this for? Why are
Right.
we doing this? Who's it for, and why are we doing this? Because you know, there's 12 of us, but then I've got a sister, and she's got kids and grandkids, and my husband's got a, and pretty soon
Exactly.
we could have
Yeah.
I mean, we could have
Yeah.
a 7-foot safe filled up of stuff.
Hmm.
But we're not particularly close.
Yeah.
We don't particularly share secrets anymore. We don't particularly talk about, uh, who we are anymore. And that
But
was
that's,
really what the decision point for me
yeah.
was if my goal in here is for um, personally for my descendants, known and unknown, to have a picture of who we are in this moment,
Mhm.
um, that we for me is pretty well defined.
Mhm.
And that was how I made, and I did talk it over, but that was an executive decision. Really,
Mhm.
it was,
Mhm.
it's doable. There's 12 of us.
Mhm. Mhm.
We can do it. We're close. We're close enough to say, Mom, this is too much. You're going to have to carry some of the load on this because I don't have time, or I'm just, I'm not going to do it just to
Make you
make you
happy.
happy,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, and they,
Yeah.
and so the people, the us that is involved in this, is, close enough that
Right.
it's, it's going to work.
Yeah. I mean,
It's going to work.
I,
If I expanded it, I'd be nagging. I'd be
Yeah.
nagging the whole time.
That's
Um,
a beautiful example of where you're drawing the line. If you
yeah,
feel
yeah,
as though you'd be nagging to you, I call it a nudge, but yeah, if you'd
yeah.
be
No, I'd be
nagging
nagging.
to get them to do it, then
Yeah,
you don't want to pull those people in. And the
right.
reason I asked this question, and Kathy's chimed in here with, that's why your goal or vision statement is so important, because
Super
it helps
important.
you make those decisions.
Yeah.
And I also ask because honestly, I think this model applies not just, and therefore you should do it just as a family, but rather, and therefore
Oh,
you should think
communities?
about each
Yeah.
category of
I have
group.
thought, I have
Communities,
thought
neighbors association, street, right?
Project Kin.
All right, people, bring it in.
I
That thought
mean,
occurred to me a bit earlier, ladies.
it occurred to me pretty often, and I'm gonna say, uh, but I mean, but think about it. Think about it. So your historical society,
Yeah,
right? And you have your members all all write a letter about the thing that they want the genealogist to in 2076 to know about being a genealogist today.
yeah.
AI is just coming in. This is what we're doing right now. What about you guys in 50 years? Because 50 years ago, we were on CDs. We didn't, right?
Right,
So
right.
this is the technology. I mean, think about how much fun that would be. Or your neighbor or your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Or but the problem then becomes again, it's that
right.
us, right?
So I mean, that's why I call it the
How
nag
do you in
factor.
50 years?
Is
Yeah,
that
but in 50 years, how do you open that?
yeah,
In 50 years,
who has ownership? Yeah.
you're right. Because I mean, like I know where my grandparents lived 50 years ago because I mean that's the house I was in all the time. But um now I wouldn't feel comfortable going back to that neighborhood to open up a, a century safe, a time capsule. Uh,
So note to self, make it portable.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
if the neighborhood said we're going to open it at the county at the park, how do you connect to those people? Because that us has gone
And I
away.
think the notion of cornerstones is that is that the word in buildings when they put in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
cornerstone
Yeah.
or a keystone in an
Yeah. Yeah.
arch
Yeah.
because it stays with the thing.
Yeah. Right.
And I have that's why Project Kin is here, honestly,
Yeah.
because in my view, this is this mind-blowing moment in time. And we
Mhm.
have access to these means to tell stories in a mind-blowing way that never existed
Yeah.
before and may multiply in the future.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for us right
Or
here,
may
right now,
disappear.
who
We don't
grew up,
know.
yeah, let's not
We
go
don't
there.
know. Yeah.
But in for I'm going to guess many of us, I won't make assumptions here, but for many of us went through school with manual typewriters, and our great
Yeah.
grandparents for whom that manual typewriter was brand new.
Super
Um,
technology. Yeah.
right? And for our great grandchildren who may not be able to read
Yeah.
script.
Right.
Um, so that actually brings me back to, I can't help myself, the technology question.
For
Um,
sure. For sure that has to
Analog
be in there.
versus digital. As I won't call myself a technologist, but someone who's built a career in technology, I do have to say that at the end of the day, it's useful to remember that our eyeballs are analog.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
yet, when you're talking about whether it's that stuffy or that thesis, it can get very big in analog form,
Yeah.
in a form
Yeah.
anybody wants to read. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Kathy
Right.
points out the first computer was, of course, with punch cards. And what's a punch card?
Yep.
It's analog.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But how have you thought about the question of media?
Next on my list.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Because
it's on my list next.
you may
It's on my
remember
it's in my
you
notes.
Yeah. You may remember V'ger. Do you remember V'ger, Voyager?
Oh yeah.
Oh, what movie? What movie? What movie? When they find, oh, it was a Star Trek episode. A Star Trek movie? Yeah. Go on. I'll get it.
Um, yeah, that's one of the things, right? So I'm going to curate it around those five circles, right? So when you asked about how am I going to decide, I'm going to decide based on that vision statement of who this is for and why we're doing this, and then try to keep it in those, like this is the bulk of it is this, and then we've got these other. I don't know if that's going to work. But that's an idea. That's how I'm going at it. And then the preservation, right? How you do that. And Kathy and I are going to talk about that. Yay.
Mhm.
um, because that is, that's the big thing, right? When Gerald Ford opened Annie Safe 100 years later, everything was fine inside. Um, a couple of the pictures had fallen over because it had been moved so often. But otherwise, everything in there was fine. Um, uh, so, so preserving what goes in there, so we're going to use the right kind of paper. We're going to do all those things that I haven't quite figured out yet, but we're going to do them. Whatever it is, we're going to do that. We're going to put things in sleeves. We're going to make copies of things. We're going to do whatever it takes to do that. And I've got a little bit of a
Just
plan, but we're going
if I
we're going to
if I
work
can
it there.
sneak a little plug in,
Mhm.
I will drop a note in about your coming episode with Kathy Stone
Yes,
to talk about that media, because I think that's
yeah,
really important in everything
it
that we
is.
do.
Yep.
But go on.
Mhm. Um, and so we're gonna so we are going to include physical things in there, and then we're going to make digital things. We're gonna put in, you know a jump drive, knowing that it's probably not going to work anymore, but we're gonna put it in there. We're gonna, I again, because I'm doing this in real time as well as I can. I'm going to learn about some of those things. I understand that there's clouds we can put it on and eternal things. When I was at Ritz Tech, I talked to a couple people about those kinds of legacy preservation things. So I'm going to, when that time comes, I'm going to explore that stuff to make sure that there's at least a good chance that the physical things are going to survive, because we have control over that technology. Yeah, right.
Of
And
us.
then the other thing, I I I include in this method is, um, we're going to scan everything that goes in it, and I'm going to distribute those. So I'm gonna give a copy to my kids. I'm gonna give copies to the grandkids. Um, and I'm gonna trust that when the technology advances, they're gonna advance those into that new technology, because we're gonna build memories around this thing that are
Mhm.
gonna last 50 years,
Right. Right.
because that's the only way a time capsule has any chance of surviving and has any meaning, is
Hmm.
if there's memories built into it. So you mention it, you talk about it, you show pictures, you say, do you remember when we put that in there? And
Hmm.
and we have to, yeah, right, we have to do that. we
Hmm.
if we want if I'm just going to speak for myself. If I want this thing to be opened in 50 years, my job is to make sure that everybody involved in it loves this thing as much as I do,
Hmm.
because otherwise it's not going to last,
Hmm.
right? It,
Being obsessive helps. I mean,
well, yeah, but
it really does.
but intentionally building memories around it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Intentionality was one of my words for you.
right, right, and do it so that it's, yeah, and it might all go to hell in a handbasket. I don't know that, but but the but Emma Emma Sutton kept that key, and she told niece, her niece, what it was. And that
Mhm.
niece, before she died, gave it to her nephew and told
Mhm.
him that story. And he didn't remember that whole story, and they thought it might be a myth. But by golly, when he saw that safe, he remembered that he had that key in a box. And I want to
Mhm.
make sure that of those 12 people, if there's any survivors in 50 years, somebody in that group remembers.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
and that, I mean, when you start talking about the emotional weight of this, I
Mhm.
did not expect that. I did not expect that kind of um
Yeah.
again, it's not like who's gonna use my china.
Mhm.
It's like who's gonna carry this forward?
Mhm.
And how do I infect them with this idea
Mhm.
that something we do today can matter 50 years from now enough that you don't forget it,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
mean, just
How
the
can
whole
I
exercise.
how can I infect them with this
Yeah.
idea? Because
The
that's how
whole,
ideas spread. That's
yeah.
exactly
The
right.
whole, but the whole exercise is, um, again, it's, I mean,
We have a clip.
I, I did not, I did not expect it to be this. I really didn't. I thought it was going to be like straight up analytical, and it was going to be one, two, three, four, five. This is, I mean,
Percentages.
yeah,
Percentages.
right.
Yes.
I was like, this is gonna, and man, it's been, I mean, there's just a lot
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
it's not just, you're not just giving them something,
Yeah.
you're giving them a moment when this is us,
Yes. That's right.
right?
That's right.
And that's,
We have the concept of birthdays, and it's in almost every culture, I think.
mhm,
This is the day, maybe it's your name day or whatever. It's a day that says you personally are special because this personal event happened, and here is this day. Okay, we move on. And many of us remember some important date. Like I remember January 1st, 2000. I was all worked up about about the Y2K
not,
problem. The world's going to come to an end. Put some
mhm,
cash away, right?
yeah,
Um,
mhm.
and then we remember the
The bad
pandemic,
days,
or
yeah,
many of us here in California, well, many places around the world
mhm,
that have Athens, that have
yeah,
earthquakes, remember where we were on
yeah,
that day.
yeah,
And those are days you can't exactly you plan for from a survival perspective, but you
mhm,
can't you don't know how to bottle up what that experience was. And
mhm,
taking a frankly political historical day of a moment in time to a national history lets you tie in that national angle
right,
where you have a historical way to look back that will be in newspapers however many
mhm,
decades ago.
right,
um, and the brilliance of creating a formula for it, that anyone, a recipe, dare I say,
yeah,
where
yeah,
anyone can make their own little variations, or even take what
yeah.
was a nuclear
It's
family
just a
and look at it
framework,
in
right?
terms of a
Yeah,
street, or a
yeah,
historical society, or a community, an online community where we've never
yeah,
met. And you
right?
find out just how short I am. I mean,
Yeah.
who
And how
knew
shy I am.
how incredibly shy you are and taciturn.
Yeah. I've talked about that human commitment that has just
Yeah.
kind of been,
Mhm.
really in the front of my mind. But again, the preservation of the whole thing. But the other parts of that are the legal documentation, right? So
Yeah.
this is going to go into when we get down to the signing, we're to the closing, we're gonna have somebody who's going to be responsible for it when I'm dead. We're going to put that in writing. We're going to put it, there's going to be a document that says that. Um, so we're going to make sure that there's that
It's not
legal,
that
there's this,
fancy in the
no,
sense that we already have the idea of legal documentation around a will that
yeah,
says my property that is my home when I am
yeah,
gone now goes to my children.
right, right.
Not a big deal, but
No,
it is a
different.
reminder. Yeah, and it needs to be
Hmm.
specified. It needs to
Yep,
be
yep,
unambiguous, and you
yeah,
can use magic of things like QR codes
yeah,
or seals or signatures to note what object you're talking about
right,
and
yeah,
where it
right.
is.
So I'm trying to really build in like a lot of redundancy of documentation on a lot of different levels that there's the personal commitment, but then there's going to be this documentation too.
Hmm.
Where I'm gonna get little postcards like Barbara has and send those to the kids, right? So that they have something. Yeah, right. Yeah. And right? We're going to take pictures.
Take it easy.
We're when I'm putting things in, I'm going to take pictures. I'm going to take videos. I've got a lot of ideas about how to make sure that this is documented in a lot of different ways. And I think that's really, really important too. So that there's a lot of breadcrumbs
Yeah.
to what this thing is, right? Um, let's see what
Where
else.
where would the Hansel and Gretel story be
Yeah,
if the birds ate the breadcrumbs? Oh, wait.
yeah, yeah, right.
But that is the problem, right?
It is
That is
for
exactly
sure.
the problem.
Yep. Um, and then the final part. Well, I've got two more parts of the plan. This method is we're gonna have a s- a closing there, like a ceremony, so that we have pictures to take, so that we can again document it, make it part of a memory, have something we can talk to and refer to over the next 50 years. And so that it doesn't just become another day of, we put something in Nana's, closet. Um, so we're going to do that. And then, um, I'm gonna write like we're gonna talk about how do we want to open this. Like we're gonna choose a date and we're gonna put that date in a eternal calendar so that it shows up on everybody's phone on that date and says in 49 years, in 48 years, you
It's a
know,
great idea. Yeah.
you know, um, there's lots of ways, again, at Rootstick, I was talking to somebody that does letters to yourself
Hmm.
where they can, send letters. They'll hold letters for you for a certain period of time and things like that. So
Hmm.
there's, again, when that time comes, I'm going to work through that. But, there's
Hmm.
lots of ways we're going to do that. And then we're going to, we're just going to close it at the end of the year and we're going to pick that date, fairly soon, I think. Um, we'll see how it goes. But it's not, it's not a, it's not a 1 year project. It's not, it's not a 1 year project. I thought it might be originally. And when I was researching Annie, I was like, man, she is just tenacious about this. She's just not moving past this. Um, and I know why. I'm starting to understand why. Um, it's not, it's not, it's the difference between getting a goldfish and getting a gray parrot.
Cockatiel, the ones that talk to you and don't stop.
Yeah. Well, like when we lived in Saudi, I mean, people would have great African gray parrots, and they live 100 and some years, and so you'd have to bequeath them when you left because you couldn't take them with you, and so you'd have to bequeath them to somebody that was staying. And this is an African gray, not a goldfish. This is a this is a commitment. Yeah, and I really hope, I'm super super excited I'm doing it. super excited. And you guys are going to tell me, just turn me off, at some point, because I'm just so excited about this. But I really, really hope that um, other people pick this up,
Mhm.
because I think it's, America's 250 is a perfect time to do this, right?
Mhm.
Um, Anytime's a perfect time to do it. But we've got this year, and 50 years isn't that far.
Mhm.
Um, and we can make it doable. We can make this doable.
Mhm.
We can, we've got the technology to do it.
Mhm.
We've got the information. We've got Annie's plan.
Mhm.
I mean, she did hers for 100 years. Everything went wrong, and it still got opened.
Mhm.
So there's hope that that we can do it for 50 years. And then in 50 years, I mean, I hope my grandkids and my great grandkids pick it up. But if it ends 50 years from now, they're going to know more about us than I know about those people 50 years ago.
Kathy Stone's just pointed out that Canadians are only 41 years away from their
Right?
bicentennial.
Right?
Exactly.
That's a perfect
You
time.
know, it really
And
has
it doesn't have to be a big deal. It could be,
no
grandma's 50th
birthday
birthday, or,
that they
it could,
anything happened. Yeah.
but
But what
but
this
because of
reminds me is that we, as my point about birthdays or anniversaries or, whatever's, we have the structure for that kind of an event. What you are doing is taking that and putting a pin in it right through time. And suddenly you have a way to create that moment of that little block of what it was, and then drop it down that chute like one of those pneumatic tubes.
bank things, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, personally, I mean, and I'm gonna personally, I'm just all over this thing. But if I step out of that, just as a family historian, think about it. Think about it. Think about, um, if your ancestor had sat down and done something like this 50 years ago, or 100 years
Mhm.
ago,
Mhm.
or 200 years ago.
Mhm.
Think about what a treasure as a family
Mhm.
historian that would be for you. People that have journals that are 20 years old, right? Yeah, right. Think about, if we, as family historians, if we committed to doing something like this, big, small, anything, if we committed to being a better ancestor today and did something, you know,
Yeah.
just something,
Yeah. When
that wasn't looking back, that wasn't going through
Mhm.
and picking out all of our family.
Mhm.
These people are related to, and this is the story I want to tell. If we sat down and said, I've got this tree, and this tree is great, but I'm going to grow it this way instead of this way. And how
Mhm.
am I going to do that? I
Mhm.
mean, if we want to tell stories, tell the damn stories, and 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 make sure they get moved forward, because our ancestors are telling stories too, but nobody
Mhm.
brought them forward. So
Mhm.
how do we do that? This is a way.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Right. That is fantastic. I think we can go ahead and open it up for,
Yeah, right?
come on in and please share your comments. Go ahead and unmute yourself and share the comments.
What's hit me, and partly what I think what Lori and I are going to talk about in May, is her. We started with her asking me about, could we talk about the preservation of the items going in the century safe, and I said, well, let's also talk about exactly what you're saying here, Lori, and it was a comment you made during, I told you in a note I sent you, something during Roots Tech. I can't remember
Yeah.
what thing it was alive, but struck me. And that was, are we telling our own histories now? And that's
Right.
exactly what you're doing with this. That's precisely
Yep.
what you're doing. And what hit me about this is, are we telling these stories? And so I've started making a list of all the things that are,
Yeah.
and even going back like 10 years. You don't even have to go back
Right.
that far, but everything going on today. And I think that's a big link between Jane Chapman's treasure box that was passed
Yeah.
on from her mother-in-law through her mother-in-law's family, and the things she got in that box
Yeah.
and what you're doing. And I think you illustrated beautifully the difference between a time capsule where everybody just tosses a few, like I throw my pet rock in and, we throw a couple other things in and
Yeah.
that's it. And what you're doing, which is actually answering that question of, are we telling
Yeah.
our own history? Because
Yeah.
list of things I just wrote down off the top of my head the other day.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh. And for the Canadians in here, I just added, thinking about the bicentennial coming up, the Hudson's
Right.
Bay Company.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yep.
in our time now, the Hudson's Bay Company, from being who founded this country to an extent to being now nothing, like a bunch
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
stores.
Grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well, not even a grocery store anymore. It's nothing. They're
Yeah.
gone. They're like
Yeah.
vacant
Just old
buildings. They're
blankets,
burned
right?
down. It's
Yeah.
the blankets, yeah, and all that history. And in our like this year, pretty well, or last 2 years, that's disappeared. And
Yeah.
that just is what those stories from our perspective is what I would have loved to have heard about,
Right.
like I know my grandfather was in the wars and he did these things, but what was that like? Like what
Yeah.
Yeah.
was that experience like, and
Oh,
what was it like to be sitting in our country with all this going on in other parts of the world? Was it like it is
yeah.
now? Was it different? Like, I think you've just hit, this is
Yeah.
brilliant, Lord. Brilliant, brilliant.
It, it- and it, like the war things, because I think about that too. I think about like the war things, but then like think about how like my second great grandmother was a midwife, and I've got her midwife certificate. I've got the little umbilical cord snipper thing that's from her,
Yeah.
and man, she kept a journal because she had to.
Mhm.
I mean, put that baby in a time capsule, Caroline. Come
Yeah.
on now.
Oh,
Those kinds of things,
yeah.
just the
Yep.
the big things, but the little things, you
Mhm.
know, throw the recipes in there. So,
Doesn't
however,
have to be a museum.
whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, what exactly, whatever it is that you in your heart want them to know about you and about your family and your life and your country and your beliefs and your faith and whatever it is that has
Mhm.
meaning to you,
Put it in there.
put it in a
Yeah.
box,
Yeah.
put it in a safe, and just
Go ahead,
send
Anne.
it forward.
I wanted to sort of jump in here. I inherited 160 artifacts from my grandmother through my mother, and I have tons of information. I have letters, I have correspondence, I have photos, I have signatures, I
Oh,
have the
oh,
medals she won. I have
yeah,
all of these things, and I almost didn't have all of these things because she left her husband. She left all of this with her husband and came to Canada and had my mother.
Mhm.
And when she died, when my mother was 9, her husband, so my mother's father, never came to get her. But he left her everything in his will in the 1950s. So she was able to get it at that point because as an
wow,
orphan, she would never have been able to keep this stuff through
yeah,
6 foster homes. And then I got it, and I've been doing research, and I have a genealogist as well in England, but I don't know anything about her as a person.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
we've recently found out her hair was red and she was 5'2". We found it on a boat manifest,
yeah,
but I don't know anything about her as a person. And I know what she did, and it's incredible. But as a
But who
person, I
was
don't know
she?
anybody who said
Yeah.
anything about her other than
Yeah.
in the press when she did it.
Right?
That's such a
Yeah.
huge difference between a museum artifact. I mean, we often just don't feel worthy. Oh, come on now. Nobody cares what I think. Nobody cares what I wanted you to do. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. But when you think about those kinds of artifacts, and then you take that next step that makes them personal, and something like you, Anne, you're obviously a redhead. To learn that your grandmother was a redhead is just guess that makes that little sparkle, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get to know my dad until I was much older. I was an adult. He was much older. I didn't know until recently, because all photos were black and white, that he was blonde. Well, not
Mm.
surprising, but
Mhm.
it's still that little stupid fact
Mhm.
is wow.
Makes them real, right?
It
Makes
Yes,
them
makes them
real.
it
real.
gives
So
them
how do you?
Feel
depth
those
and
unimportant little human things
people.
Yeah.
matter to your descendants. That
Yeah.
to me
The,
Mm.
is really
mhm.
huge.
The other thing that I got into this system, this method, is is letting those people know that I was already thinking about them,
Yeah.
right? That I did this because I was already thinking about them. I don't know them.
Yeah.
I may never know them, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
right now I'm thinking about them and I'm wanting something for them. And it's not just what's in here, but it's it's more than that. I believed they were going to be there. I believed there was a 50 years from now for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
you believed that they wanted to know about you.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because
And
you
you
thought
and
yeah,
you
about it,
believed
because of the
enough in them and
intentionality.
that you wanted them to know about you, that
yeah,
connection
right?
that they want to know. And so I'm going to help you know who I was.
Yeah, right. And as a person, that's huge. As a family historian, that's huge, right? We all wish that we had that, and you wish that you had all that other stuff, and then you had a letter to you from her, right? Think of
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Um,
It reminds me of that
we're
fundamental
going
thing
long. I'm
about, I
sorry.
know we'll be wrapping this up,
Well, I got all
but
the time in the world.
it does remind me, well, all of you watching at home, you don't get to watch the next part. But it does remind me of that foundational thing about every family historian. They look around and say, why am I the only one? Come on, man. Nobody else around them ever seems to be as interested as they are. Why? No one ever does. It's so frustrating. And then I don't know who I'm going to give the stuff to, and I can't talk to anybody. Okay, those are some of the fundamentals. Here in this modern world, we have ways to talk to each other now. So we found
Mhm.
company.
Yeah.
But still, the people who will care are your descendants.
Right.
And you've created the
But you have
superhighway
to, yeah,
to what you have to do to get to them. And
yeah,
it's not just write a blog.
right.
It is the steps that will get there. And it seems altruistic to be doing all of this work now on your family history to push it down to those descendants who will care. Why will they care? They're going to care
Yeah,
because you told them about you. You told them
yeah.
about why you put the time into it
Why I'm
and
doing it,
why
right?
I'm doing it, what
Why
I
I'm
learned from
doing
them,
it.
and what this tells me about
Yeah,
you.
Well, and
right.
I'll make
Yeah,
another point here that a lot of people feel that it's like, well, what if I have no kids, I have no
Right.
descendants, nobody's going to care. I don't think Lori is a descendant of the person whose name I've forgotten already, but I'm sorry, who floated up that
Annie Deihm.
century safe.
right. Yeah.
You have,
No,
you have no personal connection to that person,
none.
yet look how fascinating it is
Right.
to research her.
Infected
So it's
by
not
the
that you don't even
idea.
have to have a
You
descendant
don't. You
necessarily
don't.
who's going to be interested in what went on at a certain time. Like
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this,
And I mean, that's I do. I tell those stories every single day, right? Because people bothered to have a story. They had a story
Have a
and they
story.
told it, right? And that's we can all do that. Um, we can do it for people we don't even know. We
Yeah.
may never know. When I was talking to you about Emma, the lady that Annie Deihm gave the key to, they didn't even know each other when the safe was sealed.
Perfect
Didn't even know
metaphor.
each other. She had no. She was relying on institutions to take care of this thing.
You didn't mention it, but I think having a physical object as simple as a key
Yeah.
that is both metaphorical and physical is a
Yeah,
really lovely intentional
that is a good
pass
idea.
down
Yeah. Yeah.
of it. Well, you said it.
Yeah.
And you know what? With that, I think we're going to bring this recording
There
to
you
a
go.
close.
Yeah, have to.
And we can continue the conversation after the recording, and you guys
Yeah.
will never know. But comment in the chat, because I can assure you we're chatting amongst ourselves here and we'll keep that
Yeah.
going. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.